Welcome back to another episode of the Moments of Joy podcast. Today, I am sitting down with a TikTok mom that I found, and her name is Zulekha Williams. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
You're welcome. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell the listeners a little bit about who you are?
Yes, for sure. So my name is Zulekha Williams. I have an autistic son. He was diagnosed at 3. He's autistic, nonverbal. He currently does have self-injury, and we've been reducing it. He uses an AAC device to communicate, so that's his main form of communication. His sign language is very minimal. He only does more right now. It's hard for him to form his hands into different positions. And then I'm married. I also have a 2-year-old with a speech delay, and he is in early intervention, and he recently got a psychological exam, whatever it's called. And he's not autistic. He just needs some speech services and early intervention.
Yeah, I can't wait to get into all of that.
All right.
So I found Zulekha on TikTok. So I have over the years been more active on Instagram, but I just started with TikTok, and you were like one of the first moms that I kind of started following, besides Stacy's mom and yes. But I chatted with you in the DMs a little bit, and definitely wanted to have you on because there's so much information that you give on your page. You've been building community on your page. And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Maddox because it will help other people who may start to see signs and don't know what to do. And so we'll get into it.
Okay. Yeah.
And so let's start from the beginning and talk about the signs that you begin to see that alarmed you. Or I don't want to use the word alarm. I saw that on the news today. That's where that word came from. When America had a story about autism, they used alarm.
Right.
So, which made you begin to take note of things. Right.
So with Maddox, he was a preemie. So after he was born, he was in NICU for 10 days and he had issues with eating. So he didn't really start feeding until I was able to start producing breast milk. And then I would say we started noticing, let's say, delays with Maddox when he was a baby. He never crawled. He didn't crawl until he learned how to walk. And he learned how to walk when he was 17 months old, so much later. Mm-hmm. And then also his eye contact wasn't really there, and his sense of awareness, now that we've had another child and seen him as a baby, like he's so aware. But to where Maddox, he didn't have that sense of awareness of just, other noises in the room and tracking and whatnot, baby tracking. And it was really, I would say, more obvious when he was maybe 1 because he wasn't talking. And he had very little babble, but he lost that around 1 year old, but it was very minimal. It wasn't like most babies babble a lot, but Maddox didn't have that. So he completely stopped babbling. And at 9 months old, he started shaking his head really fast, like this, back and forth. And people would say, we go out in public, oh, he's saying no. And it's like, no, he's not saying no. He's because with his, it's like, really fast and just continuous, very repetitive. And that started at 9 months old. So that was a sign right there in itself. And I started bringing things up to the pediatrician at 1 year old, the 1 year old checkup. I remember I know people talk about vaccinations. They don't want to talk about it, but I was very hesitant to do the MMR vaccination. And I'm like, I don't know about this. And I got talked into it. I can make up my own mind, and I went ahead and went through with it. And I honestly wish I didn't, because that's when the babbling stopped. But at that point, he already had the head shaking at 9 months regardless, but he also had all of his vaccinations as well too. And I'm not saying vaccinations cause autism. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying this is what I see with my own personal son that I give birth to. And then at the 18-month checkup, I brought up to the pediatrician, I'm like, okay, Maddox isn't talking. He just started walking a month ago, because this is at the 18-month checkup. And I was kept being told, you know, we need to just wait because remember, he's a preemie. Let's give him time. Let's do audiology. And we did all the audiology. And once he turned 3, or I'm sorry, he started therapy at 2 years old, but he was only being seen once a week, which is not enough for autism. Right. And my background, I have my master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. So I'm aware of these things, but at the same time, when it's your own child, you look at things a little differently. And I'm trying to believe the pediatrician and everyone else telling me, no, he just needs time. And I wish I wouldn't have did that, to be honest. I really wish I wouldn't have did that. So at 3, his self-injury started, and that's when we got him diagnosed finally. Like, I had to push for that. Wow. I had to say, no, wow. This is the place I want to go to, because I called everywhere. And I want to tell everyone, call around everywhere and find who can get your kid in the soonest. Do you take my insurance? How soon can you get them in? I called everywhere, and I finally found a place. I live in California, in Rancho Cucamonga. So I drove the 2 hours there because we live on a mountain, and they saw him within a month. And she's like, I don't know how anyone else didn't see this. He's moderate to severe autistic. So that's been our journey. And then we had another kid.
I just wrote down that you live in California because that is a mom that DM'd me about resources in California I want to connect her to. And she doesn't know what to do. But that's the beauty of, you know, following and finding other moms like you online, because then the sense of community begins to form.
Exactly.
Do that. You said so much. So I want to back up a little bit because we have something in common. And so Mason, I said Mason Maddox.
Right. Similar names.
Had a traumatic birth too, and he had congenital heart disease. So he had 3 heart surgeries by the time he was 1.5. And much like you, at 5 or 6 months, when I knew that he was supposed to at least be responding to his name, he wasn't. So I want to add into their moms that are listening, or dads. You can begin to even take note when they're born, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think with babies as well too, across the nation, everyone needs to know you can get your kid into early intervention from 0 to 3 years old, and you do not need a pediatrician's referral. We didn't do that for Maddox. Instead, we just started putting him into therapies, seeing if therapies would help. And that wasn't enough, because it wasn't enough therapies and enough consistency of therapies at the same time. And he wasn't getting... He was getting speech at the time. I had him in speech too. I forgot about that. So I had him in quite a few things, but it wasn't as consistent as it should be. So like I said, even with our youngest, he's in early intervention right now without a doctor's referral. So I was told with our youngest, oh, let's just give him time too. And I'm like, no, he might not be autistic. I'm talking about our 2-year-old. But I want to start services, because if we wait, and the more we wait, that further delays him. And I do not want to further delay my child. And that's what I should have did with Maddox. I should have got him into early intervention when he was a baby. Google your state, search your state, and put in early intervention, and you apply, and you should get a phone call within probably a week to a month, and your child starts early intervention without a doctor's referral. So everyone needs to know. And speaking of California, because you mentioned the lady in California, if you live in California and you have a child that has a diagnosis of autism, you most likely qualify for in-home support services that pays parents to stay home and take care of their autistic child. and I get 206 hours a month, which is great. It helps
That's
out
great.
a lot. Yeah. Because I would like to work. I would love to be using my master's degree and making so much more money. But at the
Yeah.
same time, my child needs me right now. And that's who both of my children. And so I'm using that to be able to have some type of income to stay home, to care for Maddox, because we had him in preschool and his self-injury went.
Wow.
So I took him out of preschool. So now he's solely homeschooled, ABA, all of his services and whatnot. So,
And I love that you brought up the early intervention, because I didn't get Mason early intervention either. And I feel like I was so focused on being defensive that I didn't do what was best for him. And now looking back, I can, make that, I can say that, and help someone else. But when he came home, they offered birth to 3 services. And I was like, no, he's fine. He doesn't need that. But it's not about what they need, right? It's preventing delays.
exactly.
And if doctors are saying this would benefit your child, then sometimes they do know better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate thing with early intervention is it's not, I would say, blasted out there enough for everyone to know about, even at doctor's visits. I'm not seeing forms for early intervention on the walls, the little packets that in the little slots. Like, this is not talked about enough. And it's not even talked about in the support group I go to. So the more people that I try to post it on TikTok, as I'm trying to get more on Instagram, but I try to post it on TikTok as much as possible, like once a week. Early intervention, guys, early intervention, because I was one too thinking, let me just believe this doctor and let's wait, because they probably know what's best, when it's like, no, as parents, we know. And if we're seeing delays in our children, why not start these services now? And a lot of people want to do the waiting game of, let's just wait and see what happens, because that's what the doctor said too. But no, that further delays a child when they can get help right now.
Absolutely. Mason's pediatrician, she said, oh, he's fine, don't worry about it, twice. And so we had to go around her and get him diagnosed. So I love all of what you shared. So many parents are just wondering and waiting, and you are proof that, really you have to advocate on another level.
You have to advocate. Yeah.
I would love to talk about school, because school is stressing me out right now.
I know how you feel.
But I remember seeing your TikToks about the device and noticing that the school was only spending 15 minutes on the device with Maddox for his speaking. Yeah, it's that. Wow. So I would love for you to share about your experience in the public school.
Right. So we started Maddox's IEP, which means we enrolled him in school when he was 3 years old. So he turned 3 in May. I started the process, and I could have started that at 2.5 since he had a diagnosis, since he was showing delays, which a lot of parents don't know about. You can start your kids earlier getting the process done. So he started school at age 3. And then at a couple months, no, what happened? I actually took him out of school after he was in school for 1.5 weeks because I found an intensive autism program. They actually contacted me because they had Maddox over the summer, but it was online. That's hard for Maddox. So they said, because of COVID, and then they're like, okay, we opened up the program. We're seeing kids in person now. So we rented a place 1.5 hours away because we live on a mountain. It was during snow season, and that's hard to do, have a mortgage and rent another place on top of that. So we rented a place, put him in that intensive program for 3 months it was, until December, and the school suspended his IEP. So you can suspend a child's IEP to try something different for a while. A lot of people don't know that. You don't have to just stop the IEP. So I suspended the IEP so that way I could put him back into school if I wanted to. And his IEP is suspended right now too, by the way. So January hit, the services were done after 3 months, and I put him right back in school because he had his IEP. So the IEP opened back up. And from there, he started ABA. And ABA is the one who said, let's get him a talking device. They said, let's try PECS first and see how he picks up to that. And you don't have to do PECS or AAC or sign language in any order for a child. You can start with AAC, ASL, or PECS. It doesn't matter. So he did PECS for a couple weeks. He was doing good with that. I used items that he wanted the most, like food items, drinks, Mickey Mouse, whatever. And that got him into PECS really quick and using the icons. So from there, I ordered an AAC device like myself. I got him an iPad, a used iPad mini, and Prolo Quota Go. It's about $230. So I purchased that and I just started sending it to the school. And I emailed the principal and teacher and I said, Maddox now has an AAC device that he's learning. And I emailed the SLP at the school that he's learning an ABA and this is his main form of communication. So he needs to use that at the school as well too. And the school pushed back and said, well, no, that might not be good at the school. And what if another child breaks it? So they said, we have to have an IEP to talk about it, but most likely we're not going to allow that to happen and for him to bring his AAC device. So I put up a TikTok and it got a ton of views and everyone said, use this advocate, the IEP strategist. So she actually contacted me and we started messaging back and forth and she became our advocate. She was in 3 IEPs for us and she got the school to purchase Maddox an AAC device, his talking device. So that way he could push buttons on his computer and talk and communicate. And she also got the SLP, speech language pathologist, to do more sessions. Okay. And so from there, and then even there, I'm looking at his device one day and I left it on a specific spot and I touched a couple things and it stayed up in the top of the screen just to see what they would do. Right. And then when he came home, it looked the exact same, which means not one button was touched. It's not being modeled. It's not being used. So I emailed the principal right away and let him know how I felt about that.
Because it's just so hard. And Mason's only in kindergarten. Mm-hmm. This is my first experience with school, and I'm like, am I strong enough to do homeschool? Or should I do? I found private schools that do K through 12. They offer scholarships because there's no way I could afford another college tuition right now type of payment. But it's horrible. And I love that you brought up the IEP strategist because there is help for parents. Mm-hmm. And I also recently learned that the school system is supposed to provide an AAC device for your child.
Yeah. If you request an AAC assessment, all you have to do is, I emailed the principal. I jumped over everybody. I'm like, Maddox needs an AAC assessment. How soon can we make this happen? So they held the IEP addendum. And that's when I had the IEP strategist in there too to help me out with that because I knew this is what he needed. But at the same time, it wasn't being used in school. So long story short, the summer hit, he was out of school. Well, actually, he was in summer school for a while because he loved school at the time too. And then when the new school year hit in September of last year, 2022, I'm sorry, he went back to school. The whole entire staff changed. The aides changed. Everyone changed. It was crazy. And his self-injury went, poof. And I had one of those mommy moments the first day of school that I took him. I dropped him off. I came home and I looked at my husband and I'm like, I have to go back. And I was like, I gave him our youngest kid before he was going to work. I'm like, I don't have a good feeling. And I went back to the school. Why was I able to access the gate, open it easily? Because it was cracked open, which meant any kid that elopes, my son could have easily pushed that gate open, walked across the street to the lake. That's what he loves, water, and got into that lake or the oncoming traffic or anything. And I got to the school, to the classroom door, and it was propped open with a baby gate, and the baby gate wasn't attached on one side. And I'm like, and Maddox is crying. So I go straight to my child, ignoring everything else because I'm getting to my child. I had a bad feeling, and he's laying on the ground flat, crying with a scratch by his eye. And I'm like, what happened? And he had a 1-to-1, which I also fought for as well too with the IEP strategist. And she's like, well, I guess I scratched him. In here. Right? So we got him a 1-to-1 as well too. So if your child child is not doing as well in school, meeting their IEP goals or just needs more help, you can get your child a 1-to-1, and the school pays for that 1-to-1. And I specifically requested the 1-to-1 to have ABA training as well too, which they did. But it wasn't a good fit for Maddox regardless, because his self-injury went up. And the teacher was honest, I need help with Maddox. Do you have any ideas? And Maddox is only in preschool, so I just decided to homeschool him. But I think if he were in kinder, like your child, or even older, if your child is not meeting the IEP goals, the school has to pay to put them somewhere else.
That's right.
You can find your own private setting, whichever, I already found one too, but you can find your own private setting, and the school has to pay for that. And the school has to even bus them if it's too far for the parent to drive. So parents need to know these things. But right now I'm choosing to homeschool our child until he's maybe in the first grade.
Yeah, all of that is so important to know. And I think, as autism parents or just parents of special needs children, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, it's important to be in communities so that you hear from other parents. Like you just told me about this one-on-one. And so making sure I read his IEP and make sure that he is getting the help that he needs. Teachers are overwhelmed.
Teachers are very overwhelmed. They don't have enough support. They don't have enough even training sometimes as well too. Like I know his new teacher, she was thrown in from an aide position straight into, now you're teaching all these kids with different disabilities. And I know my son, he was the most severe in the classroom. Like it's obvious, but that classroom could not provide enough support for him. So it's important for me to keep him home right now and do before he was diagnosed, I'm going to back up a little bit. I took Mary Barbera's courses, and I still take them now too. And I learned so much from taking her courses, like how important table time is, but not forcing table time, but just doing it maybe 2 to 3 times a day and starting at the child's, using what their child is interested in. Like Maddox was only interested at that time, this is before his diagnosis, Tupperware lids and water bottles. So I used what he was interested in, brought him to the table, cleaned the environment, didn't have it all cluttered like it is right now. And okay, what can you do with these? You can stack Tupperware lids. You can sort them into different colors. We can learn to count. We can learn our colors. We can learn how to share, take turns back and forth with the water bottles, with the Tupperware lids. We can learn how to unscrew water bottles, fine motor skills. Like, parents don't realize you can use whatever your child's into, because a lot of parents say, but my child doesn't do activities. Neither did mine. Right. I used what he loved, and that's what he loved, Tupperware lids and water bottles, and would slowly incorporate, okay, now let's try a puzzle piece real quick and model how to put a puzzle piece in. And then he might do it a little bit. And I'm like, oh, yay, let's play with some more Tupperware lids, to keep his interest. There's so much that can be done at home. So much. Yeah, I love that. Mason loves straws. Straws are his things. A lot of straws, a lot, but just one. I send him to school with a straw every day. You can count straws. You can sort straws into colors. You can take turn learning how to blow bubbles or just blow the straw out of your. There's so much you can do with the straw. Add them on top of each other. Like, yeah. Wow, that's amazing. And so. How old is Maddox today? Maddox is 4.5 now. He's going to be 5 this May. Okay. And so you've already made the decision that you will continue to homeschool him. Yes. And we are also planning to move. We live on a mountain that does not provide occupational therapy, what else? His physical therapy and his feeding therapy. So right now he's only getting ABA and speech. ABA is in person, speech is virtual. And I would rather have speech in person as well too. And yeah, these services, ABA is 5 days a week, speech is 3 days a week, but he needs all of his services. So I'm looking at it like, I don't want to be in the same situation 5 years from now, 2 years from now, 20 years from now, and wondering why I didn't move for my son. Yeah. I know it's not affordable, but why we didn't try everything we possibly can. So right now we're looking for a place off the mountain so that we can move both of our kids, and my husband can still come up here to work, bigger. He's a licensed plumber. He owns his own plumbing business. So he can come up here whenever he needs the big jobs, to keep us going. And then I get the IHSS as well too. I'm going to reapply for SSI, even though we don't qualify, but I'm going to try again because I don't give up. It's been a year and I'm trying again now because I've heard some laws have changed with that. My dad told me. So we're going to move him and both of our kids. So that way our youngest could be in daycare around other, kids that are, I guess, typically developing, because he only is really seeing Maddox right now. And we have them in their play group as well too. But Maddox needs so much more than what this mountain can offer him. And I'm not going to let him be 25, 15, 10, and we didn't move for our child, because that would just be ridiculous to me. I would go home.
That is so beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. I saw another mom online. She moved her family from Florida to Colorado for services because for his condition, she said it was the best move. And I was like, wow, that is so beautiful.
Yeah. You got to do what's best for your child.
You're right, because then we would live with the regret of, I could have done this while they were younger.
And why didn't? At the same time, we have to take care of us too.
There you go.
Because we forget about ourselves in the process. And
there you go. Let's stay there for a second.
We can't do that.
My goodness.
I go to my support group that I created up here on the mountain once a month. And I wish it was more often. I need it more often. I know I do. I'm trying to work out when the boys go to sleep, but because that helps my whole mindset, just to clear my mind of the busy, hectic, crazy, good or bad day. But we can't forget ourselves in the process. I'm thinking about going to school to get my doctorate. I don't know how I'm going to fit in the time, but that's what I want to do for me. What are you doing for you?
What are you doing for you? Oh my goodness. That's like one of the most important things. And the thing that I hear the most from moms, that we are neglecting ourselves and not consistently pouring into ourselves. Those are all the things that you mentioned, Exactly. Even I told my husband yesterday that I was going to start going back to the gym on Monday. I have to start taking better care of myself. I do take care of myself mentally, but I'm realizing I don't take care of my body. I'm not watching really what I eat and taking care of my body, just not even really to lose weight, but to be healthy
in general. Exactly. And I found I stopped going to my doctor's appointments. I wasn't doing my vision. I wasn't doing dentist. I wasn't doing my well woman, all the stuff that you're supposed to do. So last year I started doing that. I'm like, no, I'm going to my vision appointment. I got my kids, because my vision appointment is off the mountain. So I got my kids. I scheduled it months out. I got a hotel room so they could go swimming too. And I told the doctor, I'm bringing my kids. And that's fine. Okay. Because you don't have a choice. And then from there, I got a pair of glasses and I got my prescription. Then I went to Walmart because it's cheaper, and I bought another pair of glasses so I could switch it up and I could feel like, a different mommy today or Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever. And then I started going back to the dentist, getting my teeth whitened, just doing things that I'm going to get my wisdom teeth pulled next month so I could straighten out my bottom row, because it bothers me. It hurts the way my wisdom teeth are growing in. But, the little things that we have to do to take care of ourselves that we don't do. And I'm happy to move off the mountain because there's no Black community up here. And I do my own hair, but I need someone to fix some of my dreads that are kind of jacked up that I don't know how to fit,
That's right.
You got to do for yourself too, because if we don't do for ourselves and have our own type of happiness, then we're solely reliant on getting our happiness through our kids. And that's not right.
Yeah,
that's not right.
Absolutely. That was a mouthful right there.
I talk too much too.
To take care. You're the perfect guest. We need to take care of ourselves. We can't say that enough. You deserve to have mommy time, whatever that time may be. It doesn't have to cost money. You don't have to leave your house, but the saying is we can't pour from an empty cup.
No,
and
you can't.
And when meltdowns happen, I realize that it feels a lot better when I'm full. One day I went out with a friend of mine, and she came in from out of town, and I spent the whole day with her. I came home at 8:00, and we had gone out to eat. We hung out. And when I came home and I took over and put Mason to bed, he had like a meltdown for like 45 minutes. Oh. And I was not filled with anxiety during the meltdown.
You were good.
Because I have filled up my cup.
Exactly.
So it felt so different than me being drained already and then him having a meltdown.
And that can even extend a meltdown if they start feeding off of us as parents and our energy and what we're giving to that meltdown, the oxygen we're giving into it, yelling or whatever, or just staying calm and helping them to get back to their happy, peaceful place, whatever that looks like for a child. All children are different. I totally agree with you. We need our time.
Absolutely. And so I love the advocacy that you're doing again. And if you could give the parents any message, what would it be?
If I could give the parents any message, what would it be?
You said a lot.
Number one, take care of yourself, because you can't take care of your children if you're not taking care of yourself. And number two, do activities at home. Even if they're in school, carry that over to the home and do those activities. Pay attention what they're doing in speech, feeding therapy, ABA. Don't be zoned out. Don't be on your phone. I know our ABA therapist and BCBA have both said, I can't believe you're in every session. Parents don't do that. Parents usually go wash dishes, cook, blah, blah, blah. But then that doesn't carry over to once that therapist leaves or that BCBA leaves, then the parent's not being consistent in services, really. If their child is only learning things for 45 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, or the 3 hours they're at preschool or 8 hours they're at school, and then they come home and then home life is completely different. Mommy's not helping me with PECs. Daddy's not helping me with my AAC device. These things that need to be, around children at all times. If your child has PECs, AAC, whatever talking device they might have, it has to be near your child at all times. And you have to model it as a parent, because so many parents say, my child doesn't use PECs, but they have it. My child doesn't use an AAC, but they have it. They don't use it because it's up to you as a parent to say, this isn't his AAC device, but to say, oh, look, we're going upstairs, touch upstairs, or I touch upstairs, or it might even sign it too for my 2-year-old who does sign language, so that way they see, oh, that's where mommy goes to touch it. And then they might remember that, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be hand over hand, but it has to be modeled all day long. Do activities with your kids at home. Know what resources you have in your state. Know what resources you have in your county, city, whoever. Get a support group, join one, even if it's just one of your best friends. Do that type. And I'm going to start posting on my TikTok. I thought about it last night. Every state. I'll probably start with California because that's where I live. And just say all the resources in California. And then maybe a couple days, whatever. New Jersey. Say all the resources for New Jersey. So New Jersey people can jump in and say it. Florida, New York, Nevada, Texas. I used to live in Texas, girl, too. I lived in Houston for a while. I love Texas.
I'm in Houston.
And you're in Houston. Yep, I used to live in Houston. Wow. Oh yeah. So I'm gonna do it for every state. So, and I'll put it on Instagram as well too. I'll try, but I'll put it on my TikTok for sure. I'm Zulekha Williams on TikTok. I provide as many resources as I can. A lot of parents email me resources, message me resources, comment resources, and I blast it out and post and put it out there to everyone. Know what your state has. It's very important. And if your state doesn't have it, consider moving because your child needs.
That's right.
Even if it's just moving a city.
I'm ready for that breakdown.
Right? Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I enjoyed our conversation, and I know that the parents have learned a lot. Follow Zulekha on TikTok. I will link her TikTok in the description of the show, and you'll be able to see it on social media as well. And thank you so much for
Thank you
taking
for
time
having
out of your
me.
day
I'm
to
on
talk.
Instagram as well too, and I'm trying to be more active there. But yeah, thank you for having me. This is like, oh, such a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for everything you do for the community. You're amazing.
Thank you so much. It's an honor. It's an honor.
Thank you.
Thank you. All righty.
All right. Peace, guys.
Remember, listeners, that we drop episodes every single Wednesday, and you always have the option to choose joy. Bye-bye.